I didn't expect the glass to slip from my hand. I didn't even notice it had shattered until I saw the tiny splash of champagne on my heel. Maybe because my eyes were locked on her. Adrienne, in uniform, captain's bars shining like a quiet dare. I remember blinking once, twice. The string quartet didn't stop playing, and the crowd kept smiling, clinking their glasses, caught in the pageantry. No one else noticed. Not yet. But I did. And in that exact second, I felt something shift in my ribs, like a chair being pulled out from under me, gently, silently, but enough to leave me unsteady. The day had started perfectly. Hair blown out, white jumpsuit steamed to a crease, live stream captions ready. Gentry Summit, 2025, Where Legacy Leads. I'd rehearsed the speech twice with my PR assistant and picked out the flute with the cleanest crystal ring for the opening toast. Henry liked to say I was a natural, but it wasn't magic. It was muscle, discipline, control. Our family brand had survived scandal, lawsuits, even Dad's silent breakdown after Mom passed, but it always bounced back because I made sure of it. And this year, we booked the Eleanor Blue, the ship, Dad's ship, the same one that nearly capsized last year, until Adrienne. I cut the thought off. Adrienne wasn't coming. She never fit. We'd reassigned her cabin 3 weeks ago. Carter, the new Pilates coach, got it. No one questioned it. Adrienne didn't answer the group thread anyway. When I posted the pre-boarding photo, a champagne glass against the railing, with the caption, "Only the real ones on board," I didn't think twice. Until now. Until her. Until that officer, Carlton, I think, saluted her across the pier, loud enough for even the cameras to pick up. Captain Gentry on board. Just 6 words, but it hit like a shot fired in velvet. Let me be honest here. I've always envied her. Not her job, not the medals, not the silence she carried like armor, but the way she never needed anyone to choose her. Me? I built my whole life making sure I was picked, voted in, liked. Adrienne. She could walk into a room and let her silence do the talking. I watched her cross the pier, black bag in hand, shoulders squared like steel under that navy coat. Not a glance my way, not a nod. She wasn't here for reunion. She was here for the ship. And I suddenly didn't know where to stand. "Ma'am, can I help?" The security guard tried to stop her. She just smiled and slid a folder across the desk. "They forgot I wasn't invited," she said, voice low but sharp. "But I was always authorized." That's the line. That's the one that won't leave my head. The line that took everything I believed about family and peeled it back like skin. Later that night, I sat alone in my cabin, staring at the same Instagram post I'd put up hours earlier. Only the real ones on board. What does that even mean now? What does it say when the real one, the one who could literally steer the damn ship, was the one we spent years silencing? I looked down at the glass on the floor. I hadn't picked it up, just left it there, tiny flecks of crystal in the corner, catching the soft LED lights like stars. There's this moment I can't stop replaying. I was 12, Adrienne was 14. Dad had just gotten back from one of his business trips, which we later learned meant another affair, and Adrienne told him she was applying for the Navy prep program. He laughed, said, "You're not built for command, sweetheart. Try something softer." She didn't cry. She didn't argue. She just left the room. Later that night, I found her at the dining table, filling out the application anyway, lips pressed into a line. I never told her I saw that. I never told her I admired it. Here's something else I didn't tell anyone. I knew we couldn't legally take the ship out without her. I'd seen the clause. I knew about the military protocol. Henry said it wouldn't matter, said we'd rebrand the trip as a private event. "Nobody's going to audit a luxury cruise," he said. And I nodded, because it was easier, because confronting truth meant rewriting everything we'd worked for. But deep down, I knew. Adrienne had signed the departure logs last year. Adrienne rerouted the ship during the hurricane. Adrienne, not Henry, not Dad, not me, kept the legacy afloat. And now? Now she was walking back on board like she never left. When I finally looked up, my own reflection in the cabin window startled me. The jumpsuit, the ring light glow, the polished influencer smile. It looked hollow, not broken, Just borrowed. I whispered to no one in particular. What if I'm not the real one on board? The silence that followed felt heavier than any storm we'd ever sailed through. The thing is, Adrian never laughed at Henry's jokes. Not once. Not even when the whole table was laughing, including me. She would just look at him, dead silent, and then turn back to her plate like she hadn't heard a thing. We used to roll our eyes at that. God, she's so uptight, Edward once whispered, and I remember smirking in agreement. But now I wonder if we were the joke all along. The morning after she boarded, I avoided her. I stayed busy with guest briefings and photo ops, moving from poolside yoga to brunch with some LinkedIn influencers. The whole cruise had a theme: lead boldly. What a cruel irony. At one point, Henry came up behind me and muttered, "So, she's really here, huh?" I pretended to check my tablet. Must have been a scheduling error. But the truth was, I knew she'd come. Part of me had hoped she wouldn't, because her presence wasn't just inconvenient, it was a mirror, and mirrors don't lie. That night, I found myself staring out at the water from my suite balcony. Waves cutting clean lines across the surface, methodical, unapologetic, just like Adrian. I thought about the last real conversation we had, if you could even call it that. It was after Mom's funeral. Everyone was exhausted. The wine was cheap. The grief was sticky and clung to every corner of the house. Adrian had pulled me aside. "Don't let them keep you small," she said. "Even pretty cages are still cages." I laughed, because I didn't know what else to do. I'd already accepted the role they gave me, the polished one, the cooperative one, the smile-on-cue daughter. I didn't want to hear that she saw the bars I refused to name. I think that was the moment I chose the family version of truth over her version, and now I can't stop hearing that line. Even pretty cages are still cages. Later at dinner, she sat with the staff, not because she had to. She had every right to sit at the head table, but I think she chose that folding chair by the control panel on purpose, to remind us who really kept this ship running. And when Henry loudly joked, again, that this is why women shouldn't steer ships, Adrian didn't even look up. She just fixed the navigation system with 3 quiet keystrokes and went back to her plate. That silence was louder than any punchline. I started seeing things I used to ignore. A junior engineer, Sasha, looked at Adrian like she was gravity itself. The maintenance crew gave her space like soldiers standing for inspection. Even the head of catering slipped her an extra dessert without saying a word. These weren't gestures for a guest. They were for someone they trusted. That stung more than I'd admit, because no matter how many followers I gained or magazine covers I landed, I'd never commanded that kind of respect. That night, I couldn't sleep. I opened my laptop and scrolled back through our internal emails, the ones I'd been too scared to read closely. Sure enough, buried in a forwarded message chain was the clause. Clause 7b 3.1. Any active use of the Eleanor Blues simulation tech must be authorized by a registered technical captain. Her name, clear as day, not mine, not Henry's, not even Dad's, Adrian's. We knew, we'd all known. We just hoped she wouldn't check. And that's what gutted me. There's something brutal about realizing you've become the kind of person you used to feel sorry for. I used to watch corporate wives smile through charity galas, pretending they didn't know their husbands were cheating. I used to pity them, the way they diluted themselves into palatable versions just to stay in the frame. And now I was posting staged toasts while silently erasing the only person who ever dared to challenge the script. The next morning, a folder showed up on my desk. No note, no explanation. Inside were updated maintenance logs, training module reports, and a hand-signed clearance letter from the Naval Reserve. All of it pointed to one unshakable truth. Adrian wasn't just on board. She owned the keys. She could have rubbed it in, could have gone live, tagged the family, aired it all. But she didn't. She just filed the papers and went to work, like always. That kind of dignity, God, it made our legacy look like costume jewelry. I closed the folder slowly, and then I noticed something. A single sticky note tucked inside. Not signed. Just 4 words in blocky handwriting. This isn't about you. It should have made me angry. It didn't. It broke something open. Because that's when I realized the pain wasn't just that she didn't need me. It was that I had needed her, and let her go anyway. That afternoon, I skipped the influencer panel. Instead, I sat in the old equipment room and opened the crewcom's log, just reading entries, watching timestamps, quiet traces of a system she'd built, protected, and never taken credit for. I don't know how long I sat there, but when I finally looked up, I knew something had shifted inside me. Not in a flashy, redemptive kind of way. Just a crack. A hairline fracture in the lie I'd been living. I didn't even realize we'd drifted off course until the lights flickered in the dining hall. It was subtle, just a small jolt underfoot, like the ship held its breath for half a second. Most people didn't notice. They were too busy Instagramming their truffle foam sea base and raising toasts to legacy. But I noticed. Because Adrian stood up. She didn't say anything, didn't yell or panic or point fingers like Henry usually did when anything went off script. She just walked, fast, steady, toward the control panel with that same calm I used to mistake for arrogance. And in that moment, I understood something I hadn't dared admit before. She wasn't trying to steal the spotlight. She was the one holding the damn wires together behind the scenes. I followed her. Not because I thought I could help, but because I suddenly couldn't bear the thought of watching from the sidelines anymore. By the time I reached the lower deck console, Adrienne was already inside the interface. Her fingers moved like she was typing a language only she understood. "What happened?" I asked quietly. She didn't look up. "They replaced the navigation software with a cheaper model. It wasn't compatible with the emergency systems. It glitched." Of course they did. Henry had pushed for the switch last quarter, arguing we needed to cut technical overhead to afford the influencer retreat add-ons. "People don't book cruises for the radar," he'd said. "They book it for the spa." God. Adrian recalibrated the system in 7 minutes. No drama, no credit. Just quiet, surgical precision. I stood there as she signed off the new route, eyes scanning every line twice. She handed the clipboard to the junior engineer, Sasha, and said calmly, "We're safe to sail." Then she walked away. Back to the staff table. Back to being invisible. By sunset, the crew's private channel had already shared the news. Captain Gentry just saved our course. It was posted without flair, just facts. But somehow, it spread. A marine blogger picked it up, then a leadership coach. Then someone clipped the security footage from the bridge and added orchestral music under her signature moment. Within an hour it was trending, not because she asked for it, but because truth has a way of floating, even when we try to bury it. Henry barged into my room an hour later, red-faced and sweating. "You knew," he hissed. "You knew she had clearance. You let her do this." "I didn't let her do anything," I replied. "She just did what none of us could." He slammed the door on his way out. And I knew what was coming next. The panic, the spin, the attempt to bury it all. But this time, I didn't want to help him. That night, I sat on the engineering deck. It was quiet there, just the hum of the ship, the kind of silence that feels honest. Adrienne found me sitting cross-legged, back against the wall. "You okay?" she asked. I shrugged. I thought I was the face of this family. Turns out I was just the filter. She didn't laugh. She just sat down next to me, hands folded in her lap. "I never wanted your spotlight, Celeste," she said. "I just wanted you to stop dimming mine." That hit like a slow bruise. Deep, quiet, lasting. The next morning, something unexpected happened. A black USB showed up on my nightstand. No note, no label, just that. I plugged it in. Inside were folders, bank records, maintenance invoices, budget forecasts, dozens of them, all altered by Henry. He'd been rerouting operational funds from the ship into a shell company registered to a luxury yacht docked in Croatia, fake crew payroll, fabricated overtime, a fake consulting firm listed under Edward's wife's maiden name. He wasn't just careless. He was gutting the ship from the inside. I didn't think. I just got up, found Adrienne, and handed her the drive. She didn't say thank you. She didn't need to. She just looked at me with that heavy gaze, the kind that says finally, and then tucked it into her folder like it belonged there all along. By midday, the story had broken. The marine blogger had updated their article. The headline now read, "The woman they didn't invite just saved the ship they built on her back." And the comments were merciless. "Give her the whole damn fleet. Captain Gentry is the only reason that boat didn't crash into Cuba. She's not the outsider, she's the anchor." That night at dinner, Dad appeared on deck for the first time in days. He walked slowly, like something in him had cracked, but hadn't broken yet. He stood next to Adrienne, looked at her with that rare softness he used to reserve for Mom, and said, "You should be at the main table, with the family." Adrienne didn't flinch. She glanced at Sasha, then back at him, and replied, "I am exactly where I belong." And the table fell silent. Even Henry, who usually had a retort locked and loaded, just stared into his wine. The Legacy Night banquet was supposed to be perfect. Live jazz, custom ice sculptures, lobster flown in from Maine. I wore the sapphire necklace Mom had once called our family's crown. Every detail had been reviewed 3 times, and yet, the only thing anyone noticed that night was the woman who wasn't on the guest list, Adrienne. Again. She walked in halfway through dessert, in a plain black dress that didn't sparkle, didn't try, didn't beg for attention. And still, every eye followed her like a spotlight. She didn't sit, she didn't smile. She carried a leather folder in her hand like a final chapter, and when she reached the front of the room, she didn't ask for permission. She just spoke. "I'd like to offer a few words about what legacy really means." Forks paused midair. Wine glasses froze mid-toast. Even Dad straightened in his chair. She laid out document after document. The original purchase agreement for the Eleanor Blue, partially funded by her consultancy when the family fund had gone dry. The federal training contract, naming her the sole tech authority on board. Screenshots of Henry's fabricated financial trails, every invoice, every misrouted dollar. No anger, no drama, just the truth, printed in black and white. And then, because she is who she is, she pulled out one last sheet of paper. It had Henry's signature at the bottom, the contract he'd signed authorizing the very embezzlement he now denied. He stood up, red-faced, sputtering. "What more do you want, Adrienne? You've had your spotlight. Are you trying to steal what's left of our family name?" She looked at him for a long beat, then said, calm as steel, "I'm not stealing anything. I'm simply refusing to let you build a legacy on my name while pretending I never existed." And that line cracked something in the room. I saw it in Margaret, our mother first. Her fingers trembled as she clutched the tablecloth. She stood slowly, her voice thinner than I'd ever heard. "I used to think daughters should stay quiet. That silence kept peace. But I see now, my silence raised men who believed you were lesser." Her eyes met Adrienne's. "I'm sorry." And in that moment, I swear, the air changed. Edward looked at the floor. Henry didn't say another word, and one of our uncles, who'd never spoken a full sentence to Adrienne in years, cleared his throat and said softly, "If she's the one keeping this ship afloat, maybe we're the ones who don't belong." People murmured, nodded, avoided eye contact with me. It was a quiet kind of justice. No applause, no champagne toast, just the truth, sitting in the center of the room like a lit match. Adrienne didn't stay for dessert. She gathered her folder, looked once at me, not unkind, but final, and walked out. The sound of her heels on the polished deck was louder than any speech Henry had ever given. A week later, a letter came. Not an email, not a group chat, a real letter, cream-colored paper, Mom's handwriting. "If you still have even a thread of trust left, meet me and Adrienne on the Eleanor Blue. No speeches, no cameras, just the 3 of us." I almost didn't go, but then I did. The sky was overcast when we left the marina. The ship moved quiet, like it knew this wasn't a ceremony. It was something closer to a reckoning. Margaret sat by the tea lounge, clutching an old folder. "They're sketches," she said, handing it to Adrienne. "From when I was young, before I chose silence over chaos." Adrienne flipped through them, ink drawings of stormy water, cracked lighthouses, a girl with short hair standing at a helm alone. "I thought being proper would keep the pain away," Margaret said, "but all it did was delay it. You chose truth, and I'm proud of you, even if I never said it. We didn't cry, we didn't hug, we just sat. Three women finally speaking in a language without apology. Later, on the upper deck, Adrian walked me to the simulator. You take the helm, she said. I'll coach from here. I froze. What if I mess up? Her voice was gentle. Then you'll learn. That's the point. The wheel felt heavier than I expected. Not just in weight, but in what it represented. I followed her instructions. The ship swayed slightly. I adjusted. When we steadied, she nodded once. You've got it. And that was all she said. I don't know if we'll ever be best friends. We didn't start texting daily or rebuilding sisterhood overnight, but something opened, something honest, and that was enough.